Hey guys, what's happening? Hope you're having a great day. Today I wanted to get in front of the camera and have a chat to you guys about losing 3 jobs in the past couple of years. I just want to chat, about the process of, what happened, what types of projects these were, and what I learned and what effect that they had on me. The first one I want to talk about, it's the biggest loss. It was a project worth about $550,000. So I was approached by a family friend to build a unit in their backyard, so like a backyard subdivision. And I worked on that project for about a year. We worked through the planning process. We worked through doing construction feasibilities, and it was a really difficult and challenging project because there were so many little moving parts in there. And the star of the show was we had to build a stormwater system, we had to get approval for a stormwater system that would be running through 2 neighboring easements, laying 45 meters of pipe, 225 PVC, and plus it was in a vegetation protection overlay. So there was a contradiction where there were trees where we needed to lay pipe, so we couldn't cut down the trees, but to do the development we needed to lay the pipe, and that was approved by the council. So then that happened, and it was a long process, and in the end we had to use a retention and a pump to pump the water pump the stormwater out of the site. So just a lot of things like that happening on that project. The difficulty of dealing with neighbors. Understandably, when a developer or a homeowner wants to lay 45 meters of pipe in your backyard. The reason that the client approached me was, it was that family relationship, and there was that trust there. And that trust was very important to this particular client. I think this client was very insecure in sort of their trust level for the industry and for, other builders, because they really bought into the fear, all the nightmare drama that happens when you're building a house. So a big reason that they came to me was that they felt like they could really trust me and that I was going to help them through the process. And I made it very clear to them that, it was a big opportunity for me. At that time I had only done 1 project, and, I still have only completed 1 project. So it was a big deal for me to have her trust me and for me to be able to do this job. So I ran all the groundwork, I didn't charge anything. I said, I'll make my money on the build. And it was a great experience for me. So what went wrong? So everything had been sorted out. We had done all the construction costing. We had mobilized many of the trades that, the earthworks, the retaining walls, the concrete up. We had mobilized those trades. And we were just about to sign the construction contract. And on that night where I went to her house to sign that contract, essentially she decided that she didn't want to go ahead anymore. So after a year's work, this client didn't want to go ahead anymore because she felt like it didn't make financial sense to build this unit in her backyard, and she would rather just purchase a house to live in and sell her existing property. Obviously, it was very disappointing to me that she had only arrived at that conclusion this late into the project after I had laid down so much groundwork, and she had spent so much money already. But my thinking behind it was, look, I'm just going to support her with whatever decision she makes, because ultimately, if she doesn't want to do the project and I somehow convince her to still go ahead with the project, that it's going to be a terrible experience for both parties throughout the whole project, essentially. So I supported her and I said, look, I'll even help you look for a house or something, and we just left it at that. From a career standpoint, I really didn't mind. I feel like, these things do just happen in the construction industry, unfortunately. There's so much uncertainty, and, we're dealing with people, and, people are inherently unreliable, for lack of a better word. And I hadn't wrapped her up in any contract or anything, so that was that. But on a personal level, it kind of messed with me quite a bit, because like I said at the start, this client was insecure about, in her trust for the industry. She didn't trust the industry, so she came to me pretty much solely based on trust. And I showed her that same respect. I trusted her as well, and I didn't wrap her up in any contract, in any agreement, and I didn't charge her for any of the project management work for that whole year. But in the end, she sort of did something that was very untrustworthy, and she rescinded on our agreement, essentially. So essentially, she realized her own fear in the end. So that's what really messed with me on a personal level. And, it's the personal level, we have a family, friends, personal relationship. But the other level of that is, at the time I was 21 years old, and I'm 22 now, but I was 21 at the time, and, I had planned out my next year based around this project. This is a $500 million construction project, and I was gonna do all that I could to make sure I do a fantastic job for her. So having her sort of take that away from me really threw out my timeline, really threw out my plans for my career development in this really important period of my career, in my opinion. So I guess that is why it messed with me. But ultimately, I'm really, really grateful that this happened for a few reasons. Number one, I guess, like I said, this unfortunately is just the sort of thing that does happen in the industry quite often. So I'm glad that it happened early in my career, and that I took the hit, and I got burnt early on. And, it hurt, and, and because if I got burnt later on, and for it to hurt as much as it hurt on this project, we might be talking about a $4, $5, $10 million project. So losing a $500,000 project, not so bad, So the burning pain to the project cost ratio was very good. The second reason is, I did earn that full year's project management experience, and it was a really challenging process. So the other way I like to think about it is, this client spent $50,000 for me to learn how to project manage. Like, I paid $40,000 for my uni degree, and she paid $50,000 for 1 year's experience for me. So I think I got a pretty good deal, honestly. Even though I didn't get paid, I think that experience is super, super valuable. The other thing is, I'm grateful that I was able to develop a relationship with the client where she could communicate with me about this issue. She could communicate with me honestly about it, I guess she could have gone about it in some bullshit way where she made some shit up or something and just flaked it. But she was honest with me, and, obviously she felt very bad as well, and she was very apologetic and understanding. So I'm glad that I was able to, create this client relationship, this dynamic where we could effectively communicate with each other, and still maintain an amicable relationship to this day. Just to summarize that first project all up, overall, I'm very grateful for the experience, even though it's a little bit bitter. But, for me, I just focused on looking forward and just figuring out what I can do, not sort of just pondering and willowing and complaining about this thing that happened, but rather thinking about how can I push forward, how can I keep reaching my goals despite this massive hiccup. The next project I want to move on to is a commercial fit out project. And this project was very interesting to me because I'd always been intrigued by shop fitting. Shop fitting is a different game to residential construction. It's all about, quick and, managing cost, quick, great margins compared to residential construction. You're making at least 30 to 50% even sometimes margin on shop fitting projects versus say 15 to 20% on residential. So it's quick turnaround, easy on the cash flow because they give you like a 40, sometimes even a 60% deposit up front. So good cash flow, good margin, but it's just super high pressure environment, and you need to manage it really, really well. So I was really excited about this challenge. And I took the project on, but unfortunately, just like this project, on the 11th hour, or probably around 1 a.m., because we had already signed the contract, the client called me advising that some unexpected things had happened in the business overnight, and they were simply unable to sustain the project going forward. So again, naturally, I was disappointed, but I said, okay, that's that. And we moved on. Again, in this project, I felt like even though we had already signed the contract, the reason they had come to me was because there was some level of personal relationship there. So I didn't want to, sort of take them to VCAT or whatever. There's no way I would have done that. I think I'm too grateful for them even having given me the opportunity in the first place. And it's not like they wanted to mess me over or whatever. They had genuinely encountered some issues and they just couldn't go ahead with the project anymore. So we parted ways. Again, it was, still a great learning experience, being able to work with the architect and work with the town planners and go through a lot of these issues which we wouldn't encounter on residential projects, like wheelchair access and fire ratings, for commercial buildings and just all these things that just don't apply to residential building. So again, it was a great learning experience and I didn't make any money from it, but I'm not out to make money at this stage in my career. On a personal level, this didn't hurt nearly as much as that first loss. And I think that's because I guess I'd felt the pain already before, so I guess I was conditioned in some way. And I didn't go in there with such strong expectations that the project will definitely go through. And therefore, I just was almost okay with it. I was quite nonchalant about it, and that was that. The third project that I lost was very recent. So it was a really cool little project. A great friend of mine, I guess I call him uncle of mine, a fantastic landscaper, really, really great landscaper. He had a client who he did a garden for who wanted a pool house built. And, he was just too busy, under-resourced, and he thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to take on that project. On this project, I was involved in the design process. I helped the client specify everything, just like I had done on those other two projects as well. We had signed the contract, bought our domestic building insurance, and guess what? They didn't want to do it anymore. And that was that. This was only a roughly $100,000 job. So it wasn't too much money, but still disappointing because it was a cool project. And you might be able to tell, but I'm really not so fazed about it. I got the call and I put it down and I just went about my day. I thought it was a cool project to do, nice pool house for this, beautiful Federation style home in Canterbury, double frontage, big land, beautiful house. It would have just been a cool job to do, cool for Instagram. I wanted to make a video about it, but it just fell through. So there's not much I can do about it. And again, good experience, great terms. I'm on great terms with the client, and that's just that. So in summary, so I'm 22 years old now, and sort of in my very short career thus far, I've already lost almost $1 million in work. I don't know if that's a good look from a career standpoint, but in my own mind, it's a fantastic thing. I'm very happy that I've had that experience. I'm very happy to have gone through this experience and to have just lost these projects, because I think it's just good experience. But I do ask myself, what could I have done better on these projects to maybe have pushed them over the edge or have gotten them through? And I think, honestly, I don't really want to change my approach too much, I don't want to become like a commercial shark where I work out these amazing contracts that loop these clients in and then they can't get out of them. For me, and maybe I'm just young and naive, for me, contracts are all about clarity. It's about providing clarity between the contracting parties. But for me, the way that I operate is all on a respect level. It's all on a respect and trying to provide as much value for the other party as possible. I think getting too wrapped up in contracts and whatnot is a little bit bullshitty, and that's my own personal perspective. And again, I do think it is a little naive. But having that naivety and being, using empathy to underpin everything that I do and just approaching everything with an open heart, I think has gotten me so far that these losses are just the cost of doing business. But then again, I don't even see them as costs, because I learned so much and grew so much through those projects. Okay, so I'm starting to ramble now, so I'm just going to stop talking. Thank you so much for listening. I want to share more of this type of content because I want to connect with you guys, I think we just ought to connect more. Thank you.